So I just got done playing A Plague Tale Requiem. It's been one of the most remarkable experiences I've had playing a game in years. First of all, the visuals in this game are outstanding. Developer Asobo Studio has gone above and beyond to make sure that each new area is interesting to look at, which includes some toned down areas and some vibrant areas. Let me explain. The game takes place during the Black Plague in a war-torn southern France, intentionally giving way to environments that are run down and impoverished, which lack any vibrant color at times, but still look great thanks to the game's excellent lighting system, which scatters moonlight across the environment and over tall grass brilliantly during nighttime sequences. I couldn't help just standing in areas and moving the camera 360 degrees in order to admire the artistic choices made by the art team. Honestly, the game is that beautiful. In addition to the darker, more sorrowful areas, A Plague Tale Requiem includes lush and colorful areas to brighten up the playthrough, having you wander beachfront towns full of happy civilians going on about their day-to-day, eventually leading indoors into castles and tombs inspired by that era's high-class medieval design, and finally venturing into woodland landscapes filled with colorful meadows and streams as you travel from town to town. They really had no choice but to incorporate these lively sections, because playing a game that consists of nothing but dreary locations would have been a bit much, at least for me. The game switches between night and day frequently, which helps keep the visuals fresh, given that again the game's lighting system does a bang-up job of scattering light across fields and reflecting off surfaces. In particular, I especially love how sunlight or moonlight reflects off of the stone walls in this game. The surfaces don't have that cheap wet look found in many games that try to simulate good lighting. Instead, every surface has an accurate looking reflection based on the light source. Even the shadows on the main character's clothing and armor sync up with whatever lighting is being shown, whether it be the glow from walking across open fires or the overcast from walking under scaffolding. The armor and clothing on the characters are constantly changing to reflect the lighting conditions. I actually had to Google if the game had ray tracing or not. That's how good I thought the lighting was. Amazing job, whoever was responsible. There seems to be a great tint or a washed out look to the game, which is clearly an aesthetic choice made by the developer in order to enhance the overall dreariness of the setting that the game takes place in, which I think was an excellent choice. You aren't robbed of any color because of this. Instead, everything has a cinematic look to it. The visuals keep you engaged and excited to complete chapters and progress the story to see what kind of areas are coming up next. And that's half the battle of what makes a good game, in my opinion. Can you keep me engaged throughout the playthrough? Something very difficult to accomplish in this day and age where players have seen it all and get bored easily. If graphics alone can keep the player plugged in, then that's a win for both the developer and the player. I'm not saying good graphics make a game great, but we really haven't had a truly next-gen looking game come out yet. A Plague Tale Requiem can confidently say that it is one of the first games to usher in just how impressive a next-gen game should look. I'm playing on a PC with a 3080 Ti, but I can't not mention the performance issues that console players are facing with the FPS locked most of the time at 30 FPS. But a lot of players are still enjoying their time with the game.
Amicia, what are you doing? We have to go!
No! I'm tired of being afraid. I'll show them that it's over. Come, I'll give you what you want.
He has a shield! Careful!
Intruder here! How'd you like that, huh? When someone fights back!
The voice acting in A Plague Tale Requiem does an excellent job in showcasing the fatigue or even joy that characters are facing. The original voice actors for Amicia and Hugo are back for the sequel, and the actors themselves felt that this game's story was heavier than the first, with Amicia going through life-changing tragic events that she herself was unsure she'd be able to get through.
Finally, one of my favorite lines, which I think has come up in the trailers, is this line that Amicia does. And when we did this line, I went, oh, this is different. This is really different from Innocence. She's changed. And the line is, I don't know what's happening to me, Lucas. I feel my mind going. And when we did that, I went, oh, okay. She's experiencing so much, and she's got so much more coming her way. And that, for me, was a real tipping point in starting to make Requiem.
The journey to take Hugo where he needs to go is extremely tragic, with characters dying all over the place, or Amicia, the main character, simply exhausted over the situation, having to come to terms with the fact that she has to reluctantly kill people in order to keep her loved ones alive, at times collapsing from the realization of it all. She feels responsible for her brother Hugo, a child who has seen way too much of the world's evil at such a young age, and burdens himself for being responsible for the rat plague following them wherever they end up. That sort of emotion conveyed by the voice acting makes you, the player, want to see these characters get through it all, doesn't it? The performances are believable. I believe I'm in this time period with them. The characters' problems are my problems. It's the same belief I have about the graphics, that voice work, if done well, can immerse the player further into the story to a point where, again, the player remains intrigued and will want to complete the game.
Hugo, you were having a seizure.
Don't want to go to Marseille. More people will die, you know it!
Mother wants you to...
No! The island! It's where I must go. It's where I will be fixed, Amicia. We can find it, please. Nobody listens!
The gameplay in A Plague Tale Requiem is mostly stealth-based, but it makes sure to breathe new life into the genre. At first, I thought that the stealth was going to be dated and basic to the point of boredom. I'm happy to say that the stealth, while basic at the start perhaps, evolves into a new creature by the end of the game. You see, Amicia cannot outright kill any enemy on screen by simply crawling over to them and assassinating them. Her slingshot limits her to only being effective against enemies without helmets. And the game knows this because it throws all different types of armored enemies your way. You're going to have to use your creativity and the alchemy abilities you have on hand to kill or get past enemies wearing helmets and armor. What I love the most is that there's not a one-way only approach to the stealth sections. A complaint I hear about the first game. Areas are large and thoughtfully designed, containing multiple pathways to your goal. You'll have to distract enemies by leading them away from your next route by throwing rocks onto noisy supply chests. Armored enemies can be manipulated into exposing their weak points by splashing them with tar or chemicals, freeing them up to a deadly crossbow shot. My favorite form of attack is to extinguish an enemy torch, leaving them open to the darkness where rats devour his body. Or you could even choose to reach your goal by not even killing anybody. The fact that the game forces you to be creative without necessarily spelling it out for you was both frustrating and enjoyable once I figured out what to do. Especially during fast-paced combat sequences where you have to think on your toes quickly while being rushed down by enemies. This one section on the beach that, if you've played the game, you know exactly which one I'm talking about, was super frustrating. The rat mechanic was another concern that I had, which I'm happy to have been proven wrong. I thought the game would rely too heavily on the rat mazes where you need to burn torches and create paths in order to succeed. Which actually brings me to my next point, the pacing. Pacing is super important for, you guessed it, keeping a player involved. A Plague Tale Requiem has perfect pacing. Just when you had enough of rats, the game hits you with a cutscene or action sequence. The rat sections are clearly the most involved and slower sections, requiring the most planning to complete. Having to look around to see where to carefully set foot next as to not get demolished by a rat infestation. Just when you've had enough and tell yourself, please, no more rats, I'm exhausted, the game hits you with something else like a running away from stuff section. A little easier gameplay wise, but still involved enough to where you won't lose interest, and it's also graphically a joy to behold. Finish that and boom, let's watch a well-acted, graphically impressive cutscene to connect with these characters. That's done, let's explore leisurely a bit until we walk into an area filled with guards. Time to turn on the focus again in order to reach the goal. The game has all these gameplay elements at its disposal and it utilizes them super efficiently in order to create an enjoyable experience. I couldn't find anything wrong with A Plague Tale Requiem other than a few control issues where my player wouldn't do what I wanted during fights, which caused me to die a few times. Amicia's controls fight you a bit during combat. Her slingshot, for example, has a mind of its own at times, but that could just be an issue I was having on my end. Please guys, before we conclude, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. I just hit 1,000 subscribers thanks to everyone's support. I appreciate you. So those are the 4 things I feel A Plague Tale did perfectly. Graphics, voice acting, the pacing, and the open-ended stealth gameplay. I could honestly go on forever about these 4 aspects, but that would make the video an hour long. The game is on Game Pass too, by the way, so it's a no-brainer really. Again, it sucks that console players are having some performance issues, but like I said, there's people still falling in love with this game. By the end of my time with the game, I was already telling myself, this game is a masterpiece. It really is. It's one of the few games where I plan to complete the New Game Plus mode, just to go through the environments again and experience everything for a second time. I believe they're planning on making a 3rd installment, so I'll be on the lookout for that. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I hope the video was helpful, and let me know in the comments what you thought about A Plague Tale Requiem. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know why. See you on the next one. you.